Hello, welcome back, Recapped Mystery here. Today, I'm going to explain the Japanese thriller film, The Taste of Tea. Watch out and take care. The story centers around the Haruno family, who live in a rural Japanese town. The grandfather begins the film by playing with the youngest daughter, Sachiko Haruno. As the small girl sits alone behind her, we notice her doppelganger, who is twice her size. Sachiko had been bothered by this gigantic manifestation of herself following her about. She frequently considers how to get rid of it but has never tried anything. She is yawning in the morning assembly one day at school because she feels bored. At the same moment, she notices her larger self perched on the bars, yawning. Sachiko goes into her thoughts in class and comes up with strategies to get rid of the behemoth. She recalls a story told to her and her brother by her uncle Aino a few years ago. When Aino was a child, there was a big forest known as the Haunted Forest. People used to believe that the forest was cursed and that anyone who entered it drew spirits. Aino was wandering around the bush one day, gathering bird eggs, but he had forgotten to use the loo before leaving, so he was having difficulty holding it in. He convinces himself that he will arrive home in time, but changes his mind when he notices a big egg on the ground. He decides to poop on the egg. He then notices, when he pulls his trousers up, that the egg is half underground. He begins to wonder why someone buried such a big egg rather than carrying it home with them. Then he notices the feces on top of the egg and concludes that defecating on it is even stranger than burying it. He leaves the jungle for the day, thinking about many things. Aino returns the other day to seek for the egg because the thought of it never leaves his head. However, because he is unfamiliar with the bush, he never finds the egg again. Aino, on the other hand, does not give up and searches for the egg every day, until a man with multiple tattoos and blood spilling from his body appears in front of him one day. Aino glances at him, terrified, but the man says nothing. From then on, he notices the man everywhere. Aino is initially startled and concerned by the stranger following him, but over time, he grows accustomed to being followed. He also mentions the stranger's feces on his head. When Aino was able to accomplish a flip on the playground bar one day, the man vanished and never returned. Sachiko even considers learning to backflip in order to defeat the behemoth, but she is unaware that on the day the man stopped following Aino, the police discovered a skull buried in the forest with feces on top of it. So the egg Aino defecated on was actually a human skull. In the next scene, we meet Sachiko's older brother Hajime at school. He's holding a love letter addressed to him by some girl. She invites him to meet her after school in a restaurant. Later, we witness four of Hajime's friends conversing about girls in the same restaurant. One of them is also dressed as a girl. We learn through their conversation that the love note was actually left by them to fool Hajime. The boys prepare to prank Hajime as he cycles approaching the restaurant. However, to their dismay, he cycles home without stopping at the eatery. A voice tells us that Hajime has lost trust in relationships after seeing a couple argue about cosmetic surgery in a restaurant and seeing a guy who was beaten by his girlfriend. Following that, we see Hajime and Sachiko's mother Yoshiko at work. She works on animated film projects as a designer. Her employer is a pervert who wishes to meet Yoshiko. He chastises a worker for bringing her pet to work that day. Later that night, everyone is at home when Nobuo, the father, plays Go with Hajime, a board game. The youngster has been playing the game for a long time and is becoming quite skilled at it. The following day at school, a youngster named Suzushi is assigned to Hajime's class. He develops affection for the girl right away but is too hesitant to approach her. We observe grandfather Akira, Aino, Sachiko, and mother Yoshiko enjoying tea together after school. They consume the beverage in solitude for quite some time. Sachiko rushes to the living room and stares into emptiness. Her massive duplicate is also sitting quietly next to her. She finally resolves to get rid of the big by learning to do a backflip on a bar. She dashes to a nearby restricted area with a deserted playground. She does, however, stare at the playing bar for a long time before returning home without trying to play on it. The next day at school, a girl approaches the new transfer student, Suzushi, and asks which club she would join for after-school practice. Suzushi expresses an interest in joining the Go Club. Hajime is overjoyed to learn that he and Suzuishi share a common interest. He bikes back home while fantasizing about Suzuishi. Later, alone in his room, Hajime fantasizes about an intricate fictitious scenario in which he fights phantom men to save his girl. He returns to school that evening. In the following scene, Suzuishi is conversing with a buddy while he observes her from a distance. After a while, he runs into his father on the metro on his way home. They both see two individuals dressed in costumes making noise and taking pictures. When they exit the subway, the guys get into a confrontation with some strangers, and the father and son flee the scene. The family is now seated at the dinner table, listening to the two describe what they observed in the metro. Because of the silliness of the occurrence, Ayano almost doesn't believe them. Yoshiko, the family's mother, is at work the next day. Before departing, she requests that her employer not call her the next day because she is on leave. He has clearly been pestering her to go out with him. He agrees to leave her alone, but the moment she does, he phones her husband and informs him that Yoshiko is cheating on him. Yoshiko, who is standing just outside the door, hears this and accuses her supervisor of spreading false rumors about her. In the following scenario, Sachiko awakens from a nightmare in which she and her doppelganger are swimming together. She dashes back to the abandoned playground and climbs up the play bar for the first time. Simultaneously, Ayano visits a shop run by his ex-girlfriend, who is now married to another guy. He speaks to her hesitantly at first, but gradually opens up and expresses his joy that she is happy in her life. The female says the same thing, and the two split up when their relationship is over. He then lies down by the side of a river to unwind. He observes a young man his age dancing nearby and approaches him. The next day, Yoshiko receives a call from her supervisor, who requests Uncle Ayano's assistance. He wants him to record a song because Ayano is a manga artist and a record producer. He also invites Akira, his grandfather, to appear in his music video. Ayano initially refuses to record his song, but eventually accepts after the family requests it. The granddad is overjoyed to be a part of the song and begins singing all hours of the day and night. Later that day, Sachiko is in her classroom, and her colossal buddy is observing her from the schoolyard. She returns to the playground after school to practice backflips. This time, her grandfather watches her from a distance, glad that she isn't doing anything dangerous. He quickly departs. Ayano invites his new acquaintance home for dinner at night. After supper, the family gathers while the father, Nobuo, a hypnotist, performs a procedure on everyone to calm them. He tries to hypnotize everyone, but only Yoshiko, Ayano, and his new acquaintance respond. While sitting up, the three get unconscious. They regain consciousness after a while and report they feel revitalized. Yoshiko, the mother, describes to her daughter how it feels to be hypnotized because she did not get to enjoy the experience. She describes it as the ability to move freely through space. The following day, Hajime visits the library to return some books about the board game Go. Because the Go Club is short on members, the members notice his curiosity and invite him to join. Hajime reluctantly accepts the offer and joins them at the club. Suzuishi is also present. As Suzuishi observes, he plays a game against a boy and easily wins. She then walks away without saying anything to him. At the same moment, Sachiko is practicing a backflip on the playground when a man's head appears from the earth. Sachiko flees in terror and is apprehended by two men. She informs them of the Mudman. The three return to the playground to save the man who claims to have been trapped beneath for 3 days. She narrates the incident to her mother and two co-workers who have come over for dinner at night. Ayano records a song for Akira and Yoshiko's boss a few days later. After hearing the horrible tune, Ayano and his co-workers are depicted floating into the sky. Suzuishi is playing Go with a friend at school one day when he abruptly disappears. Hajime enters the room as she finishes packing. When he notices she is alone, he prepares to go, but Suzuishi challenges him to a game of Go. The two start playing in quiet. Hajime abruptly informs Suzuishi that it was his desire to play a game of Go with her. Suzuishi then suggests that they play every day. They leave the school together after the game, under the same canopy. Hajime is overjoyed to finally be able to communicate with his crush. Yoshiko shows her animation to her co-workers the next day at work. It is inspired by the emotions she experiences while hypnotized. Everyone enjoys the cartoon and gives Yoshiko a standing ovation. Sachiko returns home and peeks into her grandfather's room to see him laying limp on the floor. In the following scene, we see the entire family riding the metro back home after the grandfather's funeral. Later, the four of them sit on the front porch in silence, drinking tea and remembering the grandfather. They then enter his study room and search through his possessions. They are surprised to discover sketchbooks containing paintings of the entire family. Yoshiko is depicted walking with an umbrella, Nobuo is running, Hajime is riding his bicycle, and Sachiko is doing a backflip on a playing bar in the paintings. In the following scene, we find Hajime playing Go with Suzushi while confidently speaking to her. Yoshiko is concentrating on her animations, while Sachiko is attempting a backflip in the playground. She finally pulls it off and freezes in disbelief. Just suddenly, her massive body appears from the ground and soars into the sky. A massive sunflower appears from the same location and engulfs Sachiko. It expands and expands until it consumes the entire world and turns to dust. Sachiko finally levitates back to the playground. The film concludes with all of the characters viewing the lovely sunset. Unlike most films, The Taste of Tea does not feature any dramatic interactions between troubled families. In fact, it is designed in such a way that viewers will find the interactions between the characters similar to their own lives. The end. Please subscribe to assist the channel, turn on notification and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch. See you again soon.